The cars we grew up with are disappearing one nameplate at a time. Brands like Oldsmobile, Pontiac, and Plymouth sat in American driveways for generations, and every single one of them is gone today. So what actually happened to them? Were these companies shut down, or did they quietly give up? Today we are walking through the great American car brands that didn't survive, and the real reason behind each one. Let's take a look. Before we get into the names, keep one idea in mind. A car brand is never just a badge on the trunk. It is a promise. It tells you what kind of person you are when you turn the key, whether you want raw power, honest value, or something a little different from your neighbor. And a brand only lives as long as that promise still means something. The moment a company forgets what its badge stands for, or the moment the parent company has to fight for its own survival, that badge is the first thing cut. Every name on this list learned that the hard way. So let's begin with the brand that gave Middle America its muscle. Plymouth was born in 1928, created by Walter Chrysler himself. The idea was simple. Ford and Chevrolet had the low-price market locked up, and Chrysler needed something affordable for every working family's driveway. So Plymouth became the people's brand, built to be dependable and within reach. But Plymouth's real glory came when it stopped being sensible and started being fun. In 1964, the Barracuda arrived, a sleek fastback that actually beat the Ford Mustang to showrooms by about 2 weeks. Then came the muscle. The Plymouth Roadrunner arrived in 1968 with a cartoon bird on the fender and a horn that genuinely went beep beep, licensed straight from Warner Brothers. It was cheap, it was loud, and young men loved it. In 1970, Plymouth built the Superbird, that wild wing machine with the long nose cone, made to win on the NASCAR ovals with Richard Petty driving. Then came the slow decline. Through the 1980s and the 1990s, Plymouth stopped being its own thing. One by one, its cars became rebadged Dodges and plain economy compacts, the same vehicle wearing a different grille. The personality drained away. If you owned a Plymouth in those years, you probably remember it felt less like a Plymouth and more like whatever was cheapest on the lot. Chrysler tried one last swing with the Prowler, that purple retro hot rod from 1997. People loved looking at it. Almost nobody bought it. It was too little, too late. Chrysler announced the end in 1999, and the last Plymouth rolled off the line in 2001 after 73 years. Plymouth lost itself by forgetting what made it special. The next brand had the opposite problem. It never forgot what it was, and that turned out to be just as deadly. Oldsmobile was not just old, it was the oldest American car brand of them all. Ransom Olds founded it in Lansing, Michigan back in 1897, and in 1901 his little curve-dash Oldsmobile became the first car ever built in real numbers on an assembly line, years before Henry Ford's Model T. Oldsmobile helped invent the American auto industry, and it kept inventing. In 1949, it dropped the Rocket 88, a light body with a big overhead valve V8, and many people call it the first true muscle car. There's even a song named after it, Rocket 88, that some historians call the very first rock and roll record. Through the 60s and 70s, the Cutlass became one of the best-selling cars in the entire country, and the 442 earned a place among the great American performance machines. So how does a brand like that end up dead? It got old in the wrong way. By the 1980s, Oldsmobile was seen as the car your father and grandfather drove. To fix that, in 1988, the company ran a now-famous campaign with the line, "This is not your father's Oldsmobile." It backfired completely. Instead of pulling in younger buyers, it just reminded everyone that yes, it absolutely was their father's Oldsmobile. Sales slid, the cars grew generic, and General Motors decided the brand that started it all was no longer worth keeping. The wind down was announced in 2000, and the last Oldsmobile, an Alero, was built in 2004. 107 years, gone. Plymouth and Oldsmobile were both giants living inside even bigger companies. Our next brand was something rarer. It was the last great American underdog, and it spent its entire life fighting the giants completely alone. American Motors, or AMC, was born in 1954 when two struggling independents, Nash and Hudson, merged just to survive. From day one, AMC was the little guy, taking on General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler with a tiny fraction of their money. And that scrappiness is exactly what made it lovable. AMC built cars nobody else dared to. The Rambler made the economy car respectable. The AMX was a genuine two-seat muscle car. And then there were the oddballs everyone remembers, the stubby little gremlin from 1970 and the Pacer, that rounded glass fishbowl on wheels that later became famous, bouncing down the street in Wayne's World. They were strange, but they were honest, and they were affordable. AMC's smartest move came in 1970 when it bought Jeep. That one decision would outlive everything else the company ever did, but running with the big boys was expensive. By the late 1970s, AMC needed help just to stay alive, and the French automaker Renault stepped in and took control. It still was not enough. In 1987, Chrysler bought the whole company, mostly because it wanted Jeep, and just like that, the last independent American carmaker was swallowed. The AMC name was retired in 1988. The bittersweet part? Jeep, the crown jewel AMC fought so hard to get, is still rolling off the line today, more popular than ever. The underdog is gone, but its best idea survived. So far, every brand we have talked about died more or less on its own terms, slowly losing whatever made it matter. But in the late 2000s, something arrived that did not care about identity or history at all. It killed several beloved brands at once, and it did it fast. In 2008, the financial crisis hit, and the American car industry went into free fall. People simply stopped buying cars almost overnight. By 2009, two of Detroit's three giants, General Motors and Chrysler, were staring straight at total collapse. The federal government stepped in with a massive bailout, tens of billions of dollars, just to keep them breathing. But that rescue came with a hard condition. These companies had to shrink. They had to cut what executives coldly called the fat. And the fat, it turned out, was not waste sitting in some warehouse. It was entire car brands. Names that had been part of American life for generations were suddenly just lines on a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet said they had to go. 3 of General Motors' own brands were marked for death in that single restructuring. And the first one to fall may be the one that still hurts the most. Pontiac was General Motors' excitement division, and for a long time it truly earned that name. The brand started in 1926, named after the great Ottawa chief Pontiac. But what people remember is the muscle. In 1964, a young engineer named John DeLorean dropped a big V8 into a mid-size Pontiac and called it the GTO. Most historians credit that single car with kicking off the entire muscle car era. Then came the Firebird and the Trans Am, with that screaming golden bird spread across the hood. If you watched Smokey and the Bandit, you watched Burt Reynolds tear across the screen in a black and gold Trans Am. If you watched Knight Rider, the talking car Kitty T was a Trans Am too. Pontiac's slogan said it all: "We build excitement." But by the 90s, the excitement was fading. Pontiacs turned into rebadged General Motors cars wrapped in gray plastic cladding. Then came the Aztec in 2001, a crossover so awkward-looking that it became a punchline for everything going wrong at General Motors. The brand that built the GTO had lost its way. So when the bailout forced General Motors to start cutting, Pontiac was on the list. In April 2009, the company announced Pontiac would be wound down, and by 2010, the brand was finished after 84 years. Think about that for a second. To survive, General Motors chose to kill its most exciting brand, the one that gave us the GTO and the Trans Am. A lot of people felt Pontiac deserved better than a quiet death on a spreadsheet. They were probably right. If you are enjoying this trip back through these old nameplates, take a second to subscribe. We tell these kinds of stories every week, the cars and the history a lot of channels have forgotten. Now let's keep going, because Pontiac was not alone. Pontiac fell because it had lost its spark. The next brand is the opposite story. It was one of the most genuinely original ideas General Motors ever had, and it got killed anyway. Saturn launched in 1985 with a bold promise. General Motors wanted a clean break from everything people disliked about Detroit, so it built what it called a different kind of car company. Saturn got its own plant in Spring Hill, Tennessee, its own dealerships, and a no-haggle price on the window, the same fair price for everyone. The cars even had dent-resistant plastic body panels that would not rust and could shrug off a runaway shopping cart in the parking lot. And people fell in love with it. Saturn owners were loyal in a way you almost never see in the car world. The company actually held reunions, called homecomings, at the Spring Hill plant, and tens of thousands of owners drove in from across the country just to tour the factory that built their car. For a real moment there, Saturn was something special. But General Motors slowly lost interest. It stopped investing, and over time Saturn began selling rebadged versions of other General Motors cars, losing the very thing that made it different. Then the 2008 crisis arrived. During the bankruptcy, General Motors tried to sell Saturn to Roger Penske, and for a few weeks it looked like the brand might be saved. Then in September 2009, the deal collapsed when Penske's manufacturing partner walked away. With no buyer left, General Motors simply switched off the lights. Saturn ended in 2010, just 25 years after it began. A genuinely different idea, killed by the very company that dreamed it up. Saturn was about doing more with less. Our next brand was the exact opposite. It was about excess, total excess, right up until the moment excess went out of style. Hummer started life not as a luxury vehicle, but as a weapon. The original was the military Humvee, the boxy go-anywhere truck that became famous rolling through the desert during the Gulf War in 1991. Americans saw it on the news every night, and one of those Americans was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who reportedly pushed the maker to build a street-legal version for civilians. That became the Hummer H1. General Motors bought the Hummer brand in 1998 and went big, adding the H2 in 2002 and the smaller H3 in 2005. For a few years, the Hummer was the ultimate symbol of excess in the early 2000s. It was enormous, it was loud, and it drank fuel like nothing else on the road, with the H2 reportedly getting around 10 miles per gallon. People either loved it or could not stand the sight of it. Then the world shifted underneath it. Gas prices shot past $4 a gallon, the recession hit, and suddenly nobody wanted a giant gas guzzler sitting in the driveway. Hummer sales fell off a cliff. During the bankruptcy, General Motors tried to sell the brand to a Chinese company, but that deal fell through in 2010, and Hummer was shut down. But the name did not stay dead. In 2020, General Motors brought Hummer back, except this time it is fully electric. The ultimate gas guzzler, reborn as an electric vehicle. You really cannot make this stuff up. Every brand we have covered so far was killed off by General Motors or Chrysler, the two companies that needed a government rescue to survive. Our final brand is different. It belonged to the one Detroit giant that refused the bailout and made it through on its own. And even that company could not save this name. Mercury was created in 1938 by Edsel Ford, Henry Ford's son, to sit right between an ordinary Ford and a luxury Lincoln. It was the step-up brand, a little nicer and a little classier, for the family that had done well, but was not quite ready for a Lincoln. And in its best years, Mercury had real style. The 1949 Mercury became a hot rod legend, the long, low-lead sled that customizers adored. James Dean drove a chopped 1949 Mercury in Rebel Without a Cause, and just like that, the brand had genuine Hollywood cool. Later came the Cougar, the Marauder, and the big, comfortable Grand Marquis that so many American families trusted for so many years. But over the decades, Mercury slowly lost its reason to exist. More and more, Mercury was simply a Ford with a different badge and a fancier grille. The Grand Marquis was a Crown Victoria. The Sable was a Taurus. When buyers can get the same car for less money down the street, the nicer badge stops making sense. Ford, even though it survived the crisis without a bailout, decided to focus on just Ford and Lincoln. In 2010, the company announced Mercury would end, and the final Mercury was built in January of 2011, after 73 years. No bankruptcy, no drama. Just a quiet, dignified goodbye to a name that once meant something special. So what do we make of all this? Look at the pattern. Plymouth, Oldsmobile, and Mercury slowly stopped standing for anything until they were just badges on cars you could buy cheaper elsewhere. Pontiac, Saturn, and Hummer were swept away when their parent companies had to fight for survival and started cutting. And AMC, the brave little independent, simply ran out of money trying to take on the giants alone. And these were not even the first. Long before any of them, America lost Packard and Studebaker, DeSoto, Nash, and Hudson. Proud names that filled the roads of an earlier generation before quietly fading away. This has been happening for 100 years. It is the rhythm of the business. But these names were never really about spreadsheets and bankruptcies. They were about the cars in our driveways, the first one you ever drove, the one your dad washed every Sunday, the engine you can still hear if you close your eyes. Plymouth, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Mercury, Saturn, Hummer, AMC. The companies are gone. But the roads they built and the memories they left behind are still very much with us. If you made it all the way to the end, then these cars probably mean something to you too. So I would love to know, which of these brands did you own or learn to drive in? Was it a Pontiac, an Oldsmobile, maybe a trusty old Mercury? Tell us down in the comments, because those stories are the best part of all this. And if you enjoyed this look back, subscribe and stick around. We have got a lot more American automotive history to remember together. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.